No. Chiyur Testament, Boy Testament base at the bottom. Yeah. Halach Chiyur. 38. Okay? You certainly were looking in the wrong place. All right. 38. Halach Chiyur. Gramas Adabar. The Mishnah at the bottom. Gramas Adabar, they completed the halachic issue. I'm not sure what we're looking for. Halachic deliberations. That's what they wanted. Gramas Adabar, they bring the litigants. The greatest among the judges, Chief Justice says, Ish pleni atazakai, so and so you are meritorious. Ish pleni, so and so atachayv, you are liable. How do you know that when they go out, they should, one of the justices should not say like they do in secular courts, well, I found you to be meritorious. It's my friends who find you found liable. What could I do? They overcame me, and that's the majority. This is as holy Rochel, he who goes and gossips, Megalo so reveals secrets, and he's a repugnant individual. Rabbi Yochanan said, we compel the person who said guilty to write liable to write meritorious, meaning that he's not allowed to write a minority opinion. He has to sign on the majority opinion. He's not entitled to express his minority opinion. Shimon Lakish argues. Shimon Lakish says, the one who says liable, who's a minority, he writes his opinion. And those are the majority who said meritorious, they write more meritorious. Okay? So according to Rabbi Yochanan, there are no minority opinions. They all sign on the majority opinion. According to Lakish, there are minority opinions. The one who lost out could write his opinion down. What? No, Dinim Omnis. Also Dinim Omnis. Yeah. This whole package is Dinim Omnis. Avlo, Zeb Bora, is all Dinim Omnis. Dinim Nefashos doesn't start till next Beret. Okay? Ma Ovid Lay, it should be Whisker, switch the names. Ma Ovid Reish Lakish, what is Reish Lakish? I've skipped. Masisa Pi Reish Lakish. What is our Mishnah as Reish Lakish, doesn't it? It says, says, how do you know that when they go out, he can't say, I found you meritorious. It's my friends who found you liable. What is Ma Ovid? It should be again Reish Lakish. What does Reish Lakish do with our Mishnah? It means, that nobody should say, that I wanted to find him. You shouldn't go around saying that I wanted to find him meritorious. V'lo shafkunli, my friends didn't let me. In other words, he's going to go out and make himself publicity. It's not. He can write down, I found him meritorious, but he can't go around publicizing it because that's going to cause strife, divisiveness, and all sorts of negative ramifications. Says the Gemara, my time, or what's the reason of it should be the Rabbi Yochanan, right? What's the reason of Rabbi Yochanan who says that you can't write a minority opinion? That the guy who came out guilty shouldn't bring other judges. The Yizbar Kabo say who hold like this minority opinion. They'll say, oh Palana was someone. Well, look at, the original judge was with us as well. Futa, do you think he made a mistake? In other words, we're afraid that the litigant who lost, if he knows that it was a minority opinion which was in his favor, is going to try and reopen it. Now, it's not clear if this is a public policy issue, or if it's going to subvert the authority of the courts, or it's a real issue because maybe he's going to go and re-litigate the case. It's ambiguous here what exactly the problem is, right? So that actually will become clear after the next Mishnah. Now, everybody says, I don't want to need to go read the Gemara after the next Mishnah. Many of the Farshim say the Gemara after the next Mishnah is going on in continuation of this Gemara, but most of them learn it, meaning all of them besides me, learn it incorrectly. I really shouldn't say that. But the point is, the way I'm going to, we'll have to learn it differently, right? The way I'm going to say it is going to be not the way they learn it, okay? So it says more in our law, Rabbi Yesha. Rabbi Yesha says, meaning the Gemara after Yud Aleph, as a continuation of our Locha Yud, even though in the Gemara it doesn't appear that way. And by the way, I got to tell you, a lot of the Farshim say that this Gemara is a continuation like I'm going to do, although not quite the same way I'm going to do it. But some of them say it's going on a Mishnah in the 5th parak, somewhere else. It's totally out of place. Okay, it has nothing to do with the next Mishnah. So, Rabbi Yesha, it said, Talmud Shev Shem Lo, I understand it says Rabbi Yesha. What's your problem? Talmud Shev Shem Lo Hosif, Dani Elu Keneged Elu. You know, later on, we're going to learn about cases by din that where after Gemara din, after the psak is issued, you can reopen the case. It's going to be a case that's a normal case. We're going to learn about that. It's going to be a case so you can reopen. New proof, new evidence came up, you can reopen the case. But just because one of the judges dissented, you can't reopen the case. So what are you afraid of, says Rabbi Yeshua? What do you care? Let the dissenter write his opinion. They can't reopen the case. What's the big deal? Rabbi Yeshua Talmud, where you get new rayas, Shev Shalom Hosif, Don Elu, Keneged Elu. There, I understand you'll add new judges, and they'll stack the court, and they'll try and make the court come out in favor of them. But here, Yev Shalem Losif, you can add on. So therefore, let the dissenter write his opinion. After Gemara Din, they're not going to add on. It's not a problem. So Reish Lakish, Rabbi Yochanan, Reish Lakish, Tarvein, Marin. So Rabbi Yochanan, Reish Lakish, though, Zer Machlokes, the previous Mishnah, they held that Rabbi Yochanan, the dissenter, can't write his opinion. He's got to sign on the majority opinion. It can't be the dissenting opinion. Reish Lakish held the dissenter can write that he dissented, but he's not allowed outside of court to say a thing. He's not allowed to go outside of court and say that he dissented. He can only write it down on the document. He can't go out and say anything about it. So says the Gemara, why is that? Because Rabbi Reish Lakish, he says, no, you know what? It's possible to add on. Not that it's possible they're going to add on and actually subvert and undermine the case and relitigate it, but it's going to subvert the public position and the authority of the Dayanim. So when they say it's possible to add on, it's not that they're actually going to add on and reopen the case, but they're going to add on and cause all sorts of tzoros. Okay? What? Do you remember this in the Bible? I don't remember from the Bible. You're right, there is a parallel in the Bible. I don't remember it. No, it isn't an Edge, but I don't remember the parallel. Okay, so come say okay, it's fine. We have 3 opinions here. 3 opinions. One is that, again, learning the 2 halachos holistically. Rabbi Yochanan's, the dissenting opinion cannot be voiced, even in a document, can't be written, even in a document, even in the court opinion. The dissenting individual can write he dissented, but he cannot voice his opinion outside of court. There's a gag order. He can't say anything. Rabbi Yeshua says, why not? What difference does it make? Once it's paskin, it's paskin. You can argue on the umpire's call, but once it's up, it's paskin. That's the way it is. There's no turning back. So therefore, it doesn't matter anymore. Okay? That's the way I would learn this Gemara. Okay, now we have to read the Mishnah Alochiyaf again. Nobody else learns that way. The Rosh Samech has a similar way of learning, but he learns the exact opposite in terms of Rabbi Yosha and Rabbi Yechon Reish Lakish. But I'm not going to confuse you. This is just, I think what I said is very, very glatt. Okay. Says the Mishnah, and I'll look it up. Kozman Shumevi Raya Soisis Adin. Anytime he brings a new proof, he can overcome the original. Then they can open up contradict the original sentence. Amrulo, they said, but if he said the guy, listen, Yankel, you have 30 days to bring it. Okay, they impose a limit of him on time, 30 days. So then, if he brings the new evidence within 30 days, so he can undermine the original psak. After 30 days, it can't undermine the original psak. It's not fair. Maya said, "Lo matzah b'tok shloshim, matzah lachar shloshim." How can you impose an arbitrary limit on him? What comes to happen later on? He finds something after 30 days. Wasn't his fault. Okay, now again, since we already read the Gemara Lochid in conjunction with the previous special Ezra Lochid base. Armalo, which is really the continuation. Armalo said Havei. It said to bring witnesses. Amar it said only I have no witnesses. Havei Raya. Okay, so bring evidence. Amar Eli Raya says I have no evidence. Ulachazman. What about later on? Motzah Edim Motzah Raya. He finds witnesses and finds proof, evidence. I raise ain't no clue. Too bad. Tanakama says, if you didn't have it at the time, and it didn't say I'm going to bring it eventually, you lose your right. Shul Omer again. Maya said, what did somebody do if they didn't know they had witnesses, and later on I found witnesses? They didn't know he had evidence. Umotzarai, he found evidence later on. Period. Amrullah, which should be, sorry, I'm a little bit rubbed out on my one. Amrullah said, Haved, bring witnesses. Amr Eliadim, I don't have witnesses. Haved Raya, bring evidence. Amr Eli Raya says, I have no evidence, no proof. Law Shumis Chayev, but he sees, okay, they're about to paskin on him that he's liable, right? Vamra said, no. Kibbutz plenty of duty. Come quickly, Reuben and Shimon, to testify for me. Do Reuben and Shimon really know anything? No. Reuben and Shimon are Montana. He's going to try it. So they get here, he's trying to, buy time. Oshoti Raya mitoch habudos, so he pulls a raya out of his pocket. Pulls proof out of his pocket. Harayna is a klum, Harayza ain't a klum. Obviously, this is talking about where the proof is spurious. In other words, you don't take that into account. Rabbi Yosha said that there are Tlas Amar and there are 3 Amorim who actually parallel. I don't know if Amorim is actually specific, or maybe it means 3 statements, 3 positions, because it's really difficult to assume that Amorim argue on the Mishnayos, but that's what seems to be from this following statement. The Tlas Amar 3 positions. Chad Amar, one says, Kozman maybe Raya, so he says it in. Ain't I bring evidence? There is no limit. There's no time. There's no statute of limitations. You can undermine the psak which based in rendered, and that's Rabbi Shimon Gamliel. Chadamar one says, "Hevi b'soch shloshim soser." Within 30 days, it undermines the psak based. And lachal shloshim soser. After 30 days, that's it. It no longer can undermine the psak. Now. The Pnei Moshe says, going according to Rabbi Shimon Gamliel. And this opinion, which is not Rabbi Shimon Gamliel's opinion himself, but this opinion holds that we limit you to 30 days. Okay? The Shiur Teretzol says that this second opinion is Rabbanan. And it's saying that according to Rabbanan, we give up to 30 days. It's really a cup half empty, cup half full. And Rabbi Shimon Gamliel says we let you always contradict. So this would be a variation of Gamliel saying no, only until 30 days. Rabbanan holds we never can let you contradict. So this would be a variation of Rabbanan say, well, we give you up to 30 days. It could be either. It could be approaching from either direction. Okay? The Chadamah, the final opinion there is Loilam Ein Soiser. You cannot undermine the halacha until you bring a proof which you never knew about hitherto. Okay? So Shiur Teretzol says, according to Chachamim, that Chachamim who said, the Chachamim hold that even within 30 days, you can't bring a raya unless it was one which you didn't know about previously, right? It has to be a brand new raya which nobody had ever divined, ever thought of before. The Meichal Mayim holds this going like Rishon Gamliel. And say that even according to Rishon Gamliel, who says you can always open up, not just 30 days, you can always reopen the case. It still has to be a novel idea which is unthought of, which you can't rehash and retread the same old evidence. It's got to be something new, which I think is mamish fakir from the appeal process in the American system. American system, I think the appeal has to be based on something which occurred in the first in the first trial, right? Has been a mistaken trial. Hiltz Punkt verkehrt. The first trial is finished. There's nothing. You can't reopen the issue of the first trial. If you want to appeal, it has to be on the basis dafka of new evidence of something else having been revealed. Okay, which is really a new trial. Okay, there's no appeal on the basis of what went on. Okay, so that's a disturbed. That's true according to everybody. Well, that's true according. I should say quite everybody. The third shita makes that obvious. It's not clear in whether the third shita is modification of the first two or is a separate shita. But the third shita certainly says it's got to be something which you didn't know about hitherto. Okay? Says more of Ha'atzanina. Now, according to the Mechamayim, there's a proof to the third opinion that it's got to be hitherto unknown proof. The Shai Torah takes out the Ha'atzanina and he learns that this is a new statement. Whichever way it is, the same says the same thing. Our Shigam said, "Maya said lawyer there sheshlo edim u'motza edim sheshlo raya u'motza raya." So according to the Mechamai, there's the proof of the third statement. The Shigam is saying, "Lawyer yodeya, he didn't know about the proof, so it's got to be a proof he didn't know about previously." The language of our Mishnah expresses that idea that it's got to be a brand new proof that he didn't know about previously, because it says lawyer there. According to the Mashayat Yisrael, though, who takes out the word V'atzninan, there's not a proof to the previous opinion, because the previous opinion was Rabbanan, not Rosh Gamliel, so you can't prove Rosh Gamliel to Rabbanan. So he holds that this is a new statement, it's just a quote from a Mishnah, and it's a preliminary header to the next passage. Now, the next passage is certainly commenting on Rosh Gamliel's statement, regardless of whether it's a proof for the prior statement or a new statement and a new discussion. And what the Gemara has difficult, though it's an unspoken question, is what is the Sfora of Chachamim? What's the Chachamim? Why do Chachamim argue and say that even if you find a brand new proof, you can't reopen the case? Rav Shigam is correct. You find a brand new proof, so you should reopen the case. By the way, the truth is, we should really clarify that the British common law American system is different than the Roman and the Jewish system. Our system, we're trying in the common law system, it's an adversarial court. We're proving what actually occurred is not really the issue, but rather who could put on a better show and convince the jury, right? Which they determined in English common law that works better than the Roman system. Okay, whether it does, it doesn't is a matter of question. But the Roman system, and which the Jewish system parallels, is based on the assumption that the court has to divine the truth, right? So it's a very, very different, and the French system, other systems are based on it. So it's a very different system. So in our system, it makes sense that if you find new evidence, you reopen because you can get more korav ala emes. Whereas in the American system, we're not trying to reach emes. We're trying to reach a resolution based on what the jury perceives to be the best showpiece which was presented to them. Okay, so now, right. I'm not saying the American system is not a good system, but yeah.
No, except that you need a time limit. I mean, they ain't over so that this can go on indefinitely.
I could.
So,
that's the advantage of common law, right? The advantage of common law is that there is a time limit. Well, why do you think they came up with this system? You think there was no advantage to it? The cockamamie system with the jury and all that? No, there isn't an advantage, right? There's a specific, you don't reopen things. So, but the thing is here, the Chazal take it as a priori assumption that you should always be able to reopen. That's why they're bothered by Rabbanan. How can Rabbanan say that you can reopen it? That's what's bothering them. So Rabbi Lo, in contradistinction to what you're saying, right? So Rabbi Lo and Rabbi Zayda Machlokas. Chadamar once said, Taka, Imikor Rabbanan, Ad Shivato Rayosef. He's got to say, I negate all further evidence. Now, only a stupid idiot would say this, but the guy gets up, the court says, I negate all further evidence, I have none. The Chadamar once says, he denies that he has any further evidence. seems to me to be a machlokes in semantics, but maybe there is some real machlokes there. Anyway, Rabbi Levi, have a what? Why?
Basically, I'm not aware of any other proof. In the first instance, he's saying there may be other proof. I'm not saying that there isn't, but I'm not going to take that into account.
All right, I guess you're right. I see if Moshe does say something similar to you. Okay, fine. I'm only taking it. Okay, says the Gemara, Rabbi Levi Avalidin B'chad Barnash. Levi had a court case for an individual. I'll ask about him about houses. And they were adjudicating him in front of Rabbi Lezer. After Gamadin was over, he brought a new proof. Rabbi Levi had a new proof. Show Rabbi Yochanan if he can bring, I guess Rabbi Lezer actually asked the judge, asked Rabbi Yochanan if he's allowed to bring a new proof. Amalei said yes, calls Machi maybe Raya. So he says I did. That's what we paskin. Like Rabbi Shimon Gamliel, that anytime you have a new proof, you can reopen the case.
Even years later.
Even years later. Well, it wasn't years later in this case, though. But yeah. Rav Avam Kis, cool name. Havaledin B'chad Barnash. He had a name with a certain individual. Isaac Rechai about a millstone. V'hava Aidaini Kum Rabbi Lezer. They were judged for Rabbi Lezer. After the case is over, he brought witnesses. Show Rabbi Yochanan. He asked Rabbi Yochanan again, Rabbi Lezer. Rabbi Yochanan got annoyed. He said, the same question? Didn't I tell it to you earlier? Calls Manchi maybe I said it did. So as it brings the proof, he can cancel overturn the prior judgment. Why are you bugging me again? Veloma train Uvdin. Why taka two cases? Well, we're trying to justify Rabbi Lezer, obviously, right? Taka two cases. Rabbi Levi lois avil exadin. I'll tell you why. But Rabbi Levi, the psaktin had not yet been issued. It wasn't yet over. And of course, Rabbi Lezer knew Yogi Berra's principle, right? So therefore, since he knew the principle, so therefore, it was more partial. He accepted that, of course, you could go and restart from scratch. But in the case of Rabbi Abimkis, Yisabli Exardin was ready, was absorbed in, so therefore he was more leery about whether this is in fact the case he can turn it over or not. Okay? Isha De'im, now this is totally left, I don't know why this is here, it seems just to be a tack on. Asher De'yonim, when you have the kiyum of the Dayanim on the star, which says, we, the Dayanim, Reuben, Shimon, Reuben, Shimon, and Levi, certify that these are the signatures of the witnesses, Yehuda and Yisachar. Right? So that's they have a certification. Do you need a kiyum on the kiyum? You have to certify that the kiyum is correct or not. In fact, the Bible says you do. Rabbi Yeshua b'shem Shmuel and Rabbanai b'shem Shmuel. Chadamar once said, well, they both say you would need it. Yes, the answer is yes. But Chadamar once said, Yiskaim obksavide'edim obksavide'edim. Once said it's either or. Either you sustain the witnesses or you sustain the judges, and therefore the advantage of the judges is simply that their signatures are more recognizable. But Chadamar once said, and this argues in the Bavli, you don't even have to do, you can mix and match. There are two Eidim and three Dayanim, right? You can sustain one signature of an Eid and another signature of a Dayan, and they join together, which is a tremendous chiddush in the Bible. It doesn't hold that way. Okay? So that's what the Yerushalmi holds. Okay. I don't know if that holds that way. The halach, it's not clear, but that's the Yerushalmi does bring down, obviously, the Shita. Both monetary law and capital punishment, the witnesses have to be cross-examined. Shemar says, Mishpat Echad Yelochem B'Shav, one system of justice. Ma ben dinim mominus lo dinim foshos, so what's the difference between monetary law and capital law? Dinim mominus, monetary law, B'Shlosh only requires 3 judges. Dinim foshos, capital law requires, Etzem B'Shlosh, 23 judges. Dinim mominus, by monetary law, Paischim ben l'schus ben l'chayva, you begin the court case with either party, whether the party who is liable, the party who is meritorious. Obviously, That's lav dafka, because nobody's liable meritorious in monetary case for Ishtar, rather means the tovea or the by the plaintiff or the defendant. But in a fashion's personal schus, you always start with the side of the defendant. They never start with the prosecuting side. Okay? How's it work in the secular courts? Prosecutor goes first? Okay. Rabbi Yochanan said, okay, Rabbi Yochanan said, Mamish Fakert. Rabbi Yochanan said, not only is it either or, but Lamaisa, what the Dayanim is do, B'shulachus HaMamon Yisrael, in order to try and save Jewish money, Amru, the Dayanim always they say, we say to witnesses, how do you know that Reuven owes Shimon? Now the truth is, in a monetary case, famous principle is, someone's going to lose out in the end, right? But obviously this, whether it's a chumrah to one, but kula to the other. But obviously this Gemara holds that since we say a mitzvah chaver love a raya, right? And right now the money is being held by Reuven, and you're trying to extricate it from Reuven. So it's more chasa Mammon Yisrael to say to Adam, how do you know that this guy should actually owes money to the other guy? So we give the initial move, so to speak, to the defendant, not to the plaintiff. Okay? We provide the initial advantage to the defendant, and the plaintiff has to try and prove that the obligation exists. There are interpretations of that, but that's more or less what the Meicha Maim says. Why do we do Lamaisa? Is Rabbi Yochanan just a principle, or is it actually Lamaisa? So Amalek Rabbi Yochanan, we takadu like Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yochanan, in order to have mercy on Jewish money, they say, we say, how do you know that Reuven has an obligation vis-a-vis Shimon? Okay? Zira b'shem Rabbi Chanina and Rabbi Yehuda. Zira said name Rabbi Chanina and Rabbi Yehuda. Now here the Shaitah puts it in, I think he's right. Karyeh. He said there's a machlokas between the psukim. Not that these Tanoim Amoraim argue, but rather there's a distinction between the psukim. What's in between the psukim? So put the word Karyeh. They had a discussion about the psukim. Top of Chafal from Rav. Chadar one person says, which means cross-examine very well, ask questions, analyze, etc. The Chadar one says, Tzedek says they'll pursue quick justice. Right? Shirdof. Which means obviously not slow and deliberate, but hasty and quick, right? So which is it? So how do you do it? It's coming out well, right? The Shaitah so flips the gears here, and I think it's right. Tzadkei, let's do it quickly. Just give the justice. If you see it's a tricky business, chakreu, then cross-examine. And the halacha is, although it's not brought down here, the Yerushalmi really, the Bible says that shalotino dels bifnei lovin, in order not to lock the door in the before borrowers, they said that dinim amisan require judicial v'chakira. Chazal dispenses, so it's not explicit here. It's almost the same thing, but not quite the same thing. Here it says that if you see things are going good, so you can dispense with it. More, not so much a takana d'rabbanan like we see in the Bavli, but more of an interpretation of two different psukim. That the tzedek tirdof, I don't recall that they interpret the tzedek tirdof in the Bavli that way. No? Don't think so. Okay, so I think there's not quite in line with the Bavli's interpretation. Okay?
I would have said tzedek tirdof reflects back on the previous Gemara about not having a final, opening up the case.
You want to go, why? At the rabbit. So she means justice should open up.
But you should, tirdof could also mean to run after it, right? That you run after the tzedek.
Yeah, but that's not tzedek. If there was new riots, it's not tzedek.
If it's new rayas that he has eidim that he didn't have before. So that is tzedek.
So you're saying it's a riot or shouldn't?
Yeah.
I didn't misunderstand it. No, it's possible, right?
But he didn't use that.
Right, because it's not that unambiguous. Supposedly, I think you bring a proof there. Okay, Rav Huna. This we have previously. Rav Huna Karav Chami, when he saw Shadim Mechavno, when he saw that the witnesses, their stories were too similar. They started cross-examining rigorously. We said no, there were differences. Mechami used to help them get together on the testimony because he used to show they were probably telling the truth. Okay? Now, the next Gemara is a very difficult Gemara. And basically, Sharater so cuts out the next 5 lines and writes his own shas, which is a cool thing. I wish I could do that too. But I can't, and I don't think he can either. Yeah, so I'm going to learn this Gemara, and I didn't like the favorish of any of the Mepharshim here. I really did think that they very far from Pshat. So this next 5 lines, my Pshat totally, okay? Keita Paischim L'Schus. And now this must be a call for some Brisa, okay? We say, how do you posel L'Schus? Omrim, do we say to the witnesses, Efshesh, is there Holocaust and Nefesh? Ramosha, this defendant's Ramosha Feinstein. How can you say that he killed somebody? Right? So that's how we open the schus and din in the foshos, right? We say, how can you say this defendant kills a tzaddik? Says Zamora, can't be. Rabbi Yosef said, Kani. If that's how you start out, what about the following bright? This is seems a snippet from Mishnah Sim for a bright, so later on it's not exactly clear. It says if one of the witnesses comes later on after he said that Moshe is a roitzeach, so he can later on he can say, but I have a schus for him. Maybe he didn't hear the asra, maybe he was oblivious. He wants to lamed schus a little bit on him. The aide who said he's liable wants to come be lamed schus. So that's the Gemara says later on, we don't let him. So Machlokas actually. Mishnah says we don't let him. The Bryce Rabbi Yehuda argues. He says we do let him. But Lamaisa, it's an issue later on. Can an A come be Malamed Schus after he's already said that this guy is a Reitzeach, right? So it says, well, if that's the case, if that's where you start, we say to the witnesses, how can you say that Moshe killed? So then, that would just say, is it a schus? Is it a schus? Is it to teach it to say a schus? Meaning, it's mashma that really the aide came and he said, Moshe, I was using before, Moshe is a murderer. And then later on, maybe he'll come up with a schus. And so it sounds like initially we agreed Moshe is a murderer, but later on we look for a schus. But if you're going to say that when the aide comes to Beis Din, you say to the aide, how dare you say that Moshe is a murderer, right? Then it's not that later on he could be posech l'schus. No, the whole time he's going to have to fight himself out of the hole that we assume to begin with that he's basically incorrect. In other words, the Mishnah later on is assuming that we assume the aide is correct, the aide assumes he's correct, and later on he wants to change the story a little bit to try and say schus. But that's not in line with this statement, because the way this statement goes, it means the initial assumption is that the aide is Hoffman's rocker. So what does the aide have to do? Not be mulam. It's chus on the guy. The aide's got to go. He has to defend himself, right? So it's a totally different mindset. Similarly, it says later on, it gives a quote again. I'm not sure where this quote is from. It's probably for a brisa. Ubach aver v'sio. His friend comes to help out the witness. Yesh kan siua. What, the friend is coming down the friend is helping out the witness in the schus, right? Be mulam mit schus. Yesh kan siua. What, the friend is going to come to help him out? To be mulam mit schus. Have to help out the aide, to bail out the aide. The people should think he's insane, right? Right. The aide is in trial. Im omer kain. If you say this way, in other words, that you begin with the schus, that you approach the aide, and you approach the aide and say, how can you say that Moshe killed? This is like Rav Moshe Feinstein. So in that case, Loim say Chavla Dayone. Isn't the aide, in essence, you're putting the aide in the position of having to go and be chav against the dayanim, right? Chav dayanim is a funny language. It means he's going to have to run. You're putting the dayanim in the adversarial position. You're saying that the dayanim and Eidim are finding out that the dayanim are no longer, impartial referees. What they're doing is requiring the Eidim to battle it out against them, right? And furthermore, yesh Eidim l'shakron. Are the Eidim going to come now and say, no, the judges, you're liars? In other words, how are they going to come and say that judges, listen, of course he killed, despite your preconceived notion?
The only thing is we don't trust the property.
Right, but the question is, see, the personal schus, it sounds like here in the Bible, so the Yerushalmi just ends here properly. Yerushalmi doesn't go on. So it's entirely possible that even after our astonishment, right, Kedarko Shel Yerushalmi, we do vote the schus that way. We say to the witnesses, how dare you come and say that Moshe is a murderer, right? But the mice, even according to the Bible, I never understood, I didn't look at the Bible tonight, but my impression of personal schus was always that after the Eidim say their piece, then we come, we say, well, let's try first now. It's tough, but let's try come and find the schus, right? But what the Yerushalmi is saying is that a priori, before the witnesses come, we come and say, aha, so you're the witnesses. You guys want to say that Moshe is a murderer. You see, that's how the Bible, that's the Yerushalmi is understanding. Not that in the deliberations of Roseiach l'schus, when they first come, we give the Eidim a hostile reception. And that's what the Yerushalmi is bothered by. How can you give them that hostile reception ahead of time? Okay? Yeah.
This doesn't fit in with the Rosh Hashanah. Is supposed to be sort of guideposts for any kind of questions you ask. And that asking witnesses or convincing them doesn't fit with the sort of skeptical puzzle they got.
How do you see it? What does that do with the puzzle? Yeah, but that's on the Eidos.
That's not what they're saying. They have to fine-tune their details of the Eidos. Here they're basically making a blanket statement on how they stand, but before the witness testifies, they ask them if they agree to what they lay out the questions. So I'm saying that this intro that you're talking about is certainly not stated.
It's not saying the Torah. Is that what you're saying?
That's what I'm saying.
Okay, that's fine. Okay, we all agree on that. We're on the same page then. Okay, anyway, that was the hard Gemara. I have no idea if my shot is right, but it's just as good certainly as anything else I saw tonight. Okay, says the Gemara. Rabbi Yochanan. Now we get to a bit of Agadata. And this is parallel to the Bavli, but a little bit more elaborate than a very famous Bavli. Rabbi Yochanan. First of all, Rabbi Yochanan's statement is not a Bavli. Anybody who doesn't know to be matar the sheretz, to find, say a svara that a sheretz is tor 100 times over, then he doesn't know how to be a lawyer. He doesn't know how to be a poseh b'schus. I think he says that you put it, the person who sits on Sanhedrin has to know how to be matar sheretz. Kuf nun tamim, right? With 150. Could be his Keep. I don't remember who it was. But this is not this statement. Rabbi Yochanan is not in the Bavli. Okay. Now, what is how Ketzad Doin Sheretz? How you matar sheretz? And this is the in the Bavli. You see the slides in Erev and Daf Yud Gimel. Rabbi Yanai Mayim Anochosh Shemei Mistor, a snake which kills people. It's Torah. It's not one of the 8 shrotzim which are matame, right? An achbar, a poor mouse, a mousula. Shein memis, it doesn't kill people because they didn't know about bubonic plague, right? Shein memis, ain't din lios Torah. It's not logic that when it dies, if a snake when it dies Torah, so surely a mouse when it dies should be Torah, right? Of chiluf, says Maro, maybe vice versa. Let's say achbar she'ein memis tamei, a mouse which doesn't kill people, when it dies, its carcass is tamei. Nachal shememis,
Ain't no din lios tamei. A nochash who kills is not a kavachomer that it's tamei. Hey, Ray Pinchas, and Ray Pinchas asked the kasha. Hare, he responded already. Hare va'akrov memis, a scorpion kills vutar, and it's tar, right? Oh no, he didn't respond. He asked the question as well. How can we see that misa is not the cause for tumah because an achba, a scorpion kills, and it's tar as well. It's nevertheless its carcass is tar. So it says Amar Ashkachtani. He found the Bible said Hu nachashu akrav. The same kavachorm you made from a mistake and make from a scorpion. If a scorpion which is tar, which kills, its carcass is tar. So again, an achbar which is which doesn't kill, its carcass should certainly be tar. Okay, so that's one of the 100 ways you could say a nachash, the carcass of an achbar is tar. Says Amar Rebbe said Talmud Vasichel Raimer. This is brought down the Bavli as well. Raimer had an older Talmud, and was able to do this. Armin, they said this Talmud. Now this is not in the Bavli as far as I recall. Armin, they said how Talmud the law of Yada Moria. He never got smicha. Remained a Talmud. When it says Talmud Vasik, it's a derogatory statement. The Bible brings on the famous statement, Kol Masha Talmud Vasik Asi, the Chadesh was told over to Moshe Har Sinai, right? But this is a derogatory statement. Even more derogatory, as you'll see in a moment, where he remained an Alta Talmud. Why? Because he couldn't ever come to clarity of decision. He always was saying Pilpulim and Svaras, but he didn't have the head to come up with a sharp rendition of what the actual psak should be. I told you about my roommate. My roommate once said to me, you have no idea who it is, so I can tell it to you. This is my roommate. I was in the mirror. He said to me once, he said, I have a better head than Ramosha Feinstein. He said, Ramosha Feinstein doesn't have, I am the ultimate brisker, that's what he said, so I can say a svara for each side of the machlekes. And each svara is just as good as the other one. So I can never pass in halacha. Ramosha Feinstein, he is not as bright as I am. So he can't see his svara for each side, he can only see his svara for one side. So that's why he can pass in halacha. So he said, Ramosha Feinstein has a globe cup. Alright, so that's why. So of course this guy's an idiot. Hopefully he did tshuva by now. Because of course it's fakir. That's what Gemara is saying. It's a person who cannot find truth, who cannot come to decision, who actually is constantly going around and being matamis or shirts with 100 ways. But a true person doesn't have, a true person who has true kleach hapsak doesn't have this problem. And Bavli goes, Yerushalmi goes in front and makes this amazing statement. Says Yerushalmi, Rabbi Yaakov bar Desai, Dahu Talmida, that student, Katura Mitura the Sinaihu. He's cut off of Har Sinai. You look at Bnei Moshe says, everybody at Har Sinai got a chelik in Torah. Every Jew in Klal Yisrael. He doesn't have his chelik. Because he can't come to a clear-cut position. Your chelik in Torah is the clear-cut position you come to. That Talmud couldn't come to that clear-cut position. So it says, Kol Masha Talmud Vasik Asi L'Chadesh is Nitno L'Moshe Sinai. That there again, the Bible is using in a praiseworthy sense, and saying it goes back to Sinai. This is a negative sense, as saying that this Talmud Vasi, he's cut off from Sinai because he has no clear-cut chelik in Torah. Okay, it's amazing Gemara. Okay, says Aloha Beis. Dinimominus Mati Api Echon. Dinimominus inclined based on one witness, bein l'schus, bein l'choiva, whether it's a merit or demerit. The nefashos, capital law, crime. Mate pi echad l'schus, you go after one for merit. Al pi shnayim l'choiva based on two for demerit. Now, Rabbi Yanai said. Now, the Pnei Moshe has a pshat here, the Ribaz has a pshat, and I don't like the pshatim, but I'm going. This here I didn't make up my own. The Sheila is David, Rav David Karliner, and the Netziv. The last parsha, Vayikra Perakal Pasakal, have a pshat in this Yerushalmi. So I'm going to learn like both of them. The Sheila stuff means an interesting Rashba, which I'll just tell you is a prelude. The Rashba says, if you have a psak, you have to paskin. Okay. This is what he said. You're not to paskin against him. you have to go with that posik, because you have no chiddush svara with which you can contend that posik did not know your svara, right? Just you have a general uneasiness. Too bad. But where you have a raya brura, a clear evidence, or a chiddush in svara, that you can say that the first pasuk didn't know that svara or that raya, then you're allowed to paskin against it. Okay? Without the paskin some previous statements. Now, he says that that's based on our Gemara. Rabbi Yehuda said, Ilu nitnu ha'torah chatucha. We're told to be given cut and dry. Literally speaking, cut and dry. Lo yisamola regel lamida. There'd be no place for us to stand. Right? So here the Rashi was talking about previous generation versus your generation. You versus an earlier responsa literature book. The Gemara is saying the same thing, but not about you versus an earlier generation, but about Chazal versus the Torah. With the Torah to be given cut and dry, what could we say? We had no wiggle room. But the Torah is given ambiguous, so therefore we could say Svaras and Chidushim, which resolve the ambiguity, use the ambiguity of the Torah in order to come to the proper conclusions. And they find loopholes, and that's really coming up. And Matam, what pasuk teaches us this? So by Daber Hashem or Moshe, and the critical word which Netziv adds in last week's parsha, Lamor. What does the word Lamor mean? It's a very basic Yerushalmi. No! The Yerushalmi says that Lamor means Moshe was told, you paskin. Hashem said to Moshe, general principles, and they said, and now Moshe, it's up to you. Torah is not chatucha. It's not paskin already, right? Psak is the language of chalachtoch, to cut. It's not paskin. It's not chatuch. Now you be chayte chasadin. And the tzid brings kamarayas. So again, Mamash V'ginei Vayikra, he says several rayas, that amira means very often a psak. Not just a statement, but a psak. It says, when it says, Vayomer Hashem Moshe, it means he said. When it says, Vayomer Hashem Moshe Lemor, Vayodaber Hashem Moshe Lemor, there it means, he said, you say. And in fact, the Gemara continues, tell me what to do. Moshe pleaded with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Don't leave it up to me. You tell me what to do. Right? Amar Lo, so he said, Nah, Moses. Achrei Rabim Lahatos. You follow the majority. It's up to you guys. Rabbi Mazakin, it's a few amazing Gemara, isn't it? Rabbi Mazakin, if the majority of people say meritorious, Zuchu, then you decide meritorious. Rabbi Machayvin, if the majority of people say libel, Chivu. Kidei Shetzehei HaTeiro Nidreshes, in order the Torah should be expounded, Memtes Panim Tomei, 49 ways Tomei, or Memtes Panim Tor, 49 times Tor, and it's up to you to decide. It's a famous Ritvan Erevin. He brings down a medrash, but it's really Yerushalmi. I never knew the Yerushalmi before. It says the Torah is given 49 ways Tor, 49 ways Tomei, and it's nimsa to the Chachamim in each and every generation to determine what the psak should be. It's a very famous Ritva. Famous meeting is one of the few that I know. Called Steve Gass.
Now, isn't this dangerous Gemara?
What?
Isn't it dangerous Gemara for the conservatives and the reform?
Of course it's dangerous, but the problem with the conservatives is not because had they not been because they would have had a leg to stand. Of course, they do take it out of the context, but they don't accept Torah, so it's all a sham. They're not a sham, so there'd be something for them to say. But yeah, they baloney. L'maisa, this the shiur l'taras v'sheretz. The pasuk in Erevin is also shiur l'taras v'sheretz. Then it brings down Elo V'Elo Divrei Elokim Chaim, and then he brings down here from name of Tosfos. He doesn't bring down the Yerushalmi. Even the footnotes don't bring down the Yerushalmi. But here it says, it's really the Yerushalmi. It says, Kikshol Meish Lamor Kabel went to Tarhelo Kol Dover Memtes Poim Lisa Memtes Poim Leheter. They told children 49 ways to Aser, 49 ways to Mata, Shoah Kodesh Baruch Hu, and they asked Hashem this. Varmish said she had Mosul Chachme Yisrael L'Shabchol Dover Dorvi Yachra Kamoison. It was should be given over to the Chacham in each generation. And he's Ritva says Nachol Levia Drash. It's a nice drash. I guess the Ritva didn't know the Yerushalmi. I don't know because it's basically Yerushalmi. Well, I didn't know the Yerushalmi. V'derech emes yesh tam. V'derech emes yesh tam sod b'davar. Ritva says there's also a reason I'll be Kabbalah why it should be that way. But in any event, that's this Yerushalmi. And it says interesting gematria. Very rarely do you see actually gemachas like this. Minyan v'diglo. It says that the Memtes and Gematria, 49 Gemachas, V'diglo. V'diglo alaya hava. It's coming up in shiur, Pesach time. V'diglo alaya hava. V'diglo means their banner. Sometimes means their statement. Sometimes the statement is the banner as well. In other words, one can play around with that if you have time to darshan. We don't. V'chenu me'etzotu, it says, Amaros Hashem, the statements of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Amaros Taharos. Their statements are they're fine statements, right? Now this Amaros means they're statements of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, but Amaros again means they're given over for us to paskin, and we refine them. Kesef Tzaruf Balil La'aretz. It only becomes refined silver when it's near the ground. In other words, it's our additional refinement which distills the halacha. Mezukah Shivasayim, and it's distilled sevenfold, meaning 7 times 7, 49 times. Vomer, it says, Meishorim Ayevucha. Out of our love, we took all those 49 ways and we straightened them out and made one way, which is what was given over to each and every generation to determine. And that's what it means, again, going back to when Tikkun gives the top, Vaydaber Hashem Moshe Lamor. Okay? It's an amazing statement. Now you heard it here first. Never knew why it said Lamor before, now you know. Okay. Halacha Gimel. He would have never have known it. Dinei Mominus. Machzirim ben l'schus ben l'choyva. Once you finish the case, you can, Dinei Mominus, you can go back. If there are new proofs, depending on where the Rabbanan and Alil, we learned the previous parak, you go back, but whether it's for merit or demerit. The nefashos by capital crimes, machzir l'schus v'nelzir l'chavi, you only take it back for merit, not for guilt. Haresh, you got to the basin, zakai, a guy left basin, meritorious, umatzil l'chayva, and they found him. Now it's a reason to find him guilty. Shomani shachshu, they take him back, right? Double jeopardy, right? OJ again, right? Tamalomar v'tzadik al tarok. OJ is a tzaddik. Don't kill tzaddik. Right. It means that once he's found to be a tzaddik, you can't kill him. Haresh to the base of Chavav, but he came out of waste and guilty. Motzul schus, they find him for schus. Shamani shlezer do also he had to say, don't take him back. Tamalomar v'naki al tarok. This is in the Bible. Even though he's not a tzaddik, he's a naki. Right? He's not meritorious. But he cut out clean, so therefore you can't take him back. You think if he gets off gets off the hook in your judgment down below, Yitzhak Bedini, that I'll also let him off the hook? No. It says, I'm not going to allow him off the hook, right? I won't allow the tzaddik, but the Rosh should be a tzaddik. Rabbi Yitzhak said, Amalei Rabbi Yossi said, Lo Shanya, it's no different. Even if there was a mistake in the trial. They made a mistake. They heard the wrong word, they wrote the wrong thing down. Should be, according to most Mepharshim, ein machzir also. You don't make them go back. Says the Shai Yisrael keeps the gears, and he says sorry about a masis, a missionary, because we know the missionaries were more stringent. And then we do take him back if there was a mistake in the trial. But most of the Mepharshim say you change the gears here, and it says, I feel these dako betos, ein machzir, so you don't take it back. Rabbi Yami boy Kumir Rabbi Yochanan. Now nobody knows what to do with the next line. I know what to do with it either. Look, no, unfortunately, I really none of them. I particularly pleased me, but I don't have a better shot. Rabbi Yami boy Rabbi Yochanan. I feel noif and oif. Is that true even about an adulterer and adulteress? No. Why not? So the way Gillian Ephraim wants to learn it, although I don't, again, I'm not particularly happy with it. He says, there are two dinim by noif and oifes. There's a din of where they're liable death, and there's a din of asur labal, asur laboel. So if a noif and oifes get off a technicality, do I also say that that she's mutter to the husband or mutter to the adulterer afterwards? So then he said, Ramalei, so he said, Iskalif Mirakoch. No, peel it off your head. Meaning they're two separate halachos. Even if they get off if they get off on the one count of the capital count, but they're still also to each other. She's also to her husband and to this guy, because the noif and the oifes they still are. So we peel off the two halachos, the one of the capital issue and the one of the Eben Ezer issue. Okay? Again, it's only one shot. There are many different shatim, and I don't know. I can tell you a bunch of them, but none of them are any better, from my perspective, than any other ones. Halacha. Everybody teaches merit and demerit. Anybody, even the lowest of the low, can try his hand at saying a schus, but not anybody can teach guilt. Go back and forth. You said merit can then go out can go to guilt, and you said guilt can go out to merit. The infash, however, it's fixed. It's one way, I should say. Is somebody who taught a potential of guilt. Can go back the other way and teach merit. Innocence. Somebody who once taught innocence in the deliberations in court, and you can't overturn that, and now it's trying to teach guilt. Here it says Rebbe, but they change it to Rav. Rav Omar Bachlo Yimchusorin Lomar Ishplain Tazakai Ishplain Atachayev. This is only if they haven't yet. They're only lacking saying you're meritorious or you're liable. And in that they said that now you're fixed. You can go back to one rate. You can go and teach innocence, even if you taught guilt beforehand, but you can't go back and teach guilt. Because since it's already Gemar Din, in other words, they're holding by the sentence, at this point you can't renege. But if they were still lacking masa matan, there's still middle deliberations, deliberations, nobody's fixed in their opinion yet. So in that point, you can renege both ways. He who said choiva can say schus, and he who said schus can go back and say choiva. It's only at the very end in the sentencing phase, the paskening phase, that the guy who said schus is now fixed in place. Rabbi Yechon said, even if they're still in the deliberation phase, they cannot renege. That's it. Once they're stuck in place, and they have to advocate the position they're in. And it's not like the Bavli. The Bavli, Rabbi Yechon says, in the Masa Matan they can renege, and here Rabbi Yechon says they can't renege. And Rabbi says several times they find differences of opinion between the Bavli and Yerushalmi, as we know, in the opinions of the specific Gemara. This is one of these instances. Dinimam is you judge during the day and you finish at night. But in Fashos, you judge during the day. And you finish during the day. You can't judge at night. Now, Rabbi say, I know I'm going to be a tremendous hypocrite here, because before I accuse it, I scored the shot there for writing his own Gemara. Right? Remember, I did that a few minutes ago. I'm going to do it myself here. Now, okay. The thing is like this. I don't remember where I was going to go on my CD-ROM and look, but I don't remember. I didn't get a chance. Somewhere the Yerushalmi asked, "Is there ever a pasuk which speaks in the case of B'diavad?" We had it once before. The psukim are written for l'chatchila. The psukim don't tell you what happens B'diavad, right? A pasuk tells you l'chatchila what you should go and do preferentially. Pasuk tells you B'diavad, this is what you're going to do. By the Rabbanans, you find the Chatchil B'diavad. By the Torah itself, there's no Chatchil B'diavad. Torah says, this is what you do. The Chatchil B'diavad is a rabbinic concept. What? No, that's not Chatchil B'diavad. That's which can change that halacha. It's al chatchim di'evet. Okay, I'm not going to quibble with you on that. But lamaisa. So we're going to ask the second line here. Is koi l'shavar? Everybody goes crazy. They don't understand exactly what the Gemara is asking. But based on where the Gemara is in front of us. But I'm pretty sure that the Gemara is asking questions. There's such a thing as p'di'evet. So I'm going to rewrite the Gemara so that works out. Because the way the Gemara is written, it's backwards. So the way I want to learn the Gemara, it says, the Gemara is going to talk about, go to Chav Beis Amud Aleph at the top. And read that over here. Kiri Masnisa. This is the way to read our Mishnah. Shim Tov V'Donu Balayla Shedinam Din. If they judge at night, B'di'evet, it works. Tamulom Arvishaftu es Ka'am B'choleis. Because the Pasuk says they can judge anytime. So, B'di'evet, they're not supposed to judge at night. The Mishnah says they can judge at night, they're not supposed to judge at night. But b'di'evet, if they did it, it's good enough. So now going back to the bottom of 42 of Chav Aleph and Beis, ask Gemara, V'yis karei l'shavar. What do you mean? It's a pasuk talk about b'di'evet. Pasuk never talks about b'di'evet. Right? L'shavar is Hebrew for b'di'avad. L'shavar means after the fact. B'di'evet means after the fact as well. So rather, going back to the line before that, the shaftu es amchol eis, Rav Shmuel Bar Yitzchak says that it's going on our Mishnah, it's teaching us, and there's something missing here, but it's telling us that l'chatchila danin dinim omnes b'yoyim v'gomrim b'layla. L'chatchila you can go and start during the day and finish at night. Why? Because it says the shaftu es amchol eis. It's not going, but the evidence means as long as you start in the day, you can finish at night. And the Gemara says, at the end of the Gemara, Omar, Ha Amira. He said, oh, this is Amira. Remember, Amira means a psak, right? This is a taka good psak. So that, I think you have to shuffle. I didn't actually change very much. I just reshuffled. And I think it's right, because otherwise, the weights are in front of us, as I say. Nobody understands what's going on. Everybody goes crazy. And this way, it's very straightforward. That the Havmin is that the Mishnah is only b'di'evet, the Maskana is that it's l'chatchila, and what b'chol eis means, so as you started during the day, you can finish tonight. Is it terrible? He's not impressed. Okay. Right, Dinim Omnus, right. Okay, but the first says not. Okay, Dinim Omnus, Koibrim Bo Bayoim, and Dinim Omnus, you can finish on that same day. Bein b'schus ben l'choiva, whatever it is. Dinim Fosh is Koibrim Bo Bayoim, b'schus, the same day, you can let him off the hook. But if Yom Shar Choiva, if it's to kill him, we have to wait till the next day. You can't pass on that same day. Therefore, ain't done lo be'erev Shabbos lo be'erev Yontif. Why? Because you might have to go the next day, and you can't go to Paskin on Shabbos and Yontif, death penalty. Why is that? Because immediately after they issue you got to kill him, and you can't kill him Shabbos and Yontif. Says the time let's ha'ed ein melamid lo schus lo chola. A witness cannot say either merit or demerit, right? Later on, we're going to say, but later on, it says explicit Mishnah, as I mentioned before earlier this evening, that if he tries to limit even schus, we're mishatik him. We say, we paskin is not allowed to. Rabbi Yetzer, even the Brisa says, the Tosefta says he can, but we don't paskin away. So, how do you know that? Minola, Shtemar says, Ve'ed, the pasuk is actually, Ve'ed echod lo yana b'nefesh, Lamus. So that means he can't teach chayva, right? Now there's a line missing here. Charter so puts it. Uminayin afilu schus, and it's based on Tosefta. Uminayin afilu schus. How you know even a schus he can't teach? Tamulomar echad lo yane. Says one should not answer. And you take out the word a at the beginning, the word lamus at the end. It means no matter what, which are they're redundant words. So therefore it comes out even the schus he shouldn't teach. And minayin, how do we know? And here it should say, instead of the next line, Shehu Batzmo. The same idea, but just a little bit grammatical change. Shehu Batzmo ena malamed olav choiva. How do we know that we don't allow to defend it? Gary Gilmore, everybody remember Gary Gilmore? First person was killed after the U.S. reinstated the death penalty. How do we know that you can't be malamed choiva upon yourself? Meaning that the murderer can't say, yeah, right, I'm guilty, shoot me. Right? How do we know that's for Talmud Malone? Because it says, he tried this, so takes out the word who. I'm not sure you have to, but he said, Lo yana b'nefesh lamus. He doesn't respond against himself in order to die. Okay? Alright. Reish Lakish said, Pa'amim, sometimes, sometimes, Shloy said a different thing. He says a different spin on this. Not talking about the victim himself, but talking about an aid. Sometimes an aid sees that Adam Zoyman coming against him, right? So he gets scared, right? Because he knows he was a liar, right? Adam Zoyman come against him. So they're going to say he wasn't there, right? So he gets all nervous. So umafli bidvarav shelo yamus. And then he wants to reopen his testimony and try and distort it and twist it in order that he shouldn't die. So from this, Reish Lakish says, Lo Yarim B'Nefesh Lamus, when he sees himself put in a precarious position, he can't go and get. Actually, it's going back to the beginning. The aid can't be Malamed Schutz, meaning he can't go and reopen his testimony because we know that he's trying to do that just in order to prevent himself from being an aid Zoymim, and we want to kill him. Okay? How do we know that the 2 days of court has to be next to each other? Good question. The answer is missing. I don't know. Whoever's holding the manuscript dropped it. The answer's not here. Julian Ephraim says missing. Okay. Rav Chizkiah Rachel said, also ladun di imam Erev Shabbos. Now let's judge on Erev Shabbos the imamness. What about our Mishnah? What about Mr. Plicha? Says v'yechein doni lo be'Erev Shabbos lo be'Erev Yontif din nefashos. Says you can't judge din nefashos because you can't go overnight. Or din imamness didn't. Says you can. Sounds like din imamness you can do. But I Reb Chia can. Reb Chia learned explicitly. Din imamness be'Erev Shabbos you can do din imamness Erev Shabbos. They don't din nefashos be'Erev Shabbos. You just can't do din nefashos Erev Shabbos. When we said kan la'alocha v'kan l'maisa, in theory you can do them. L'maisa we don't. So then you have to go home and make Shabbos. What are you going to go make the moments of Shabbos? V'yadun so be'erev Shabbos. Ask Gemara. Okay, get back to the capital issue. V'yadun so be'erev Shabbos. Judge on Erev Shabbos. Yigmar dinam Shabbos, and finish on Shabbos. V'yar l'motzai Shabbos. L'kil motzai Shabbos. Amar lo. Gemara Ken says Gemara you can't say it. Gemara Ken nimtza dinam mishtakeh. His judgment is submerged. Meaning that it's torturous after the penalty is meted out to keep him in anticipation. The sentence is decreed to torture him and keep him around. We have to come right away. You can't even wait till nightfall. Okay. Reish Lakish has to be a duno, so it should be bearer of Shabbos. Good, if I change it. V'yimodina b'Shabbos, v'yeho b'Shabbos. Let him be killed on Shabbos itself. Famous question of Reish Lakish in the Bible as well. Ma'im avodah sh'doicha Shabbos. A Kohen, so avoida pushes off Shabbos. Kohen do avoida in Beis Hamikdash Shabbos. Ritzicha mitzvah dechosa. But if the Kohen is a murderer, we take him away from the avoida. So avoida is doicha Shabbos, and ritzicha is doicha avoida. Right? A is greater than B, and B is greater than C. Right? So it stands to reason A is greater than C as well. Right? That ritzicha should push off Shabbos. So Ritzicha made a deicha Hashem armiim biz bechiti kochen lamus. You take it from my altar to kill him. Sheba Shabbos shavoida deicha so Shabbos pushed off avoida. Ein odin shadei Ritzicha mitzvah deicha so isn't not the that murder the death penalty. Ritzicha's mitzvah. Shana that it should be pushed off. Rabbi Lob Shermiyana says, I'll tell you, mikan lebati dim shlo yudaim b'Shabbos. Nevertheless, in the fine parts we learn that bati dim should not judge in Shabbos. My time of why? It says Shabbos ula Hashem b'chol mashvos seichem. It's Shabbos in all your settlements. It says these are your judgments in all of your settlements. Malan based on Akosim Medaber, there it's about based in Afghan. So to here in based on Akosim Medaber, saying Shabbos is also in based in. That's why based in cannot kill on Shabbos.